Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to check out the lore of the Gaunt's Ghosts, the first and only Tanith regiment. It's been a long time since my last lore video, hopefully you find this one entertaining. I'll look at who they are and how they waged war in the 40th millennium. I'll also draw on my experience as a former infantry soldier in the Australian Army to help bring to life their story. Tanith was a planet in the Sabbat world's cluster of the Segmentum Pacificus. A forest world, it was covered by now-wood trees. This local flora was capable of uprooting and moving to find better access to water or sunlight. This made it exceptionally challenging to navigate in these forests, given nowhere ever looked the same. As a consequence, Tanith natives had an uncanny sense of direction, something which served its troopers very well in differing war zones. The Tanith people are pale-skinned with dark hair. This skin is often decorated with tattoos with loops, whorls, spirals, stars, snakes or dragons, perhaps what you'd expect to see on the Vikings, and earrings and studs are also commonplace. In the audiobooks, their accent can sometimes be Welsh or Scottish sounding, although as an Australian I may have got that wrong. The regiment also has the youngest member, Trooper Milo, still play Tanith pipes, which are described nearly identically to Scottish bagpipes. So in the year 765.M41, or the year 40,765, Commissar Ibram Gaunt is sent to Tanith to raise 3 Imperial Guard regiments. The planet had been a loyal contributor of its tithe to the Imperium, and its cultural lack of any complicated martial traditions meant it was an ideal place for such a purpose. Commissar Gaunt selected the necessary recruits for the regiments, but on its day of founding ceremony, the planet was attacked by the forces of Chaos, with a small Chaos fleet having slipped through an Imperial Navy picket and attacking the planet. With only these 3 new regiments to defend it, Commissar Gaunt took the decision to evacuate the planet, given their chances were very slim against a numerically superior Chaos force both from a ground and navy point of view. This action ultimately saved about 2,000 troops, and also a single young civilian being the 16-year-old Bring Milo, who I mentioned before. While it did secure the Imperium more troops to prosecute the Emperor's will, it did also mean these troops were homeless, leaving behind their family, friends and culture. They viewed its destruction from afar on the troop transport ship Sarin, seeing Tanith blink out of existence. While most were thankful to have been saved, a lot harboured resentment towards Gaunt. They would have much preferred to have stayed on their homeworld fighting to the death, as had now been homeless. It is from this background that their name the Ghost emerges. They are ghosts being able to move and attack stealthily, but also ghosts in that they have no home and consequently don't exist. They are also referred to as the Tanith First and Only, being the first and last regiment to be raised from their fallen homeworld. So from a tactical point of view, this regiment specialises in scouting operations. As said, the homeworld with its ever-changing woodlands environment means they are expert navigators. Further, they are unparalleled marksmen, able to move with great stealth, excelling at infiltration missions. They are the true definition of light infantry, with typically minimal support from other Astra Militarum assets like armoured transport or tanks. So here I can kind of relate from my service as an infantryman. As an army recruit, you are taught the principles of camouflage and concealment and why things are seen, with the 5 S's and 1 M, being shape, silhouette, spacing, sound, surface and movement. These principles impacted how we would operate and move. Like the Tanith, we would always try to blend into our surroundings. This would see us always leaving our packs on the ground with the straps facing down, as opposed to the straps facing up. That way not presenting any sharp edges, which are unnatural in nature. If taking up a position on a rise or a hill, you would be cognizant of how the silhouette would appear, either finding cover on the face of the hill or pulling back a little more. The same applies to operating at night, being careful of how we cast our shadows. When setting up defensive positions or ambushes, we would stagger our spacing to be less uniform, as again nothing in nature is perfectly spaced apart. Our movement was carefully done, learning how to carefully tread, feeling for sticks that could snap underfoot, ensuring that none of our equipment rattled, and even going as far as not wearing waterproof jackets, as they could produce sound from the fabric when they're rubbed together. We would always camouflage all our skin, including hands and necks, learning how to distort the shape of the face with differing colours. Watches were always worn with a cover, which would prevent reflection from the watch face, and all metals were dulled to likewise prevent reflection. And finally, how he moved was always careful and deliberate, as sudden movement better catches the eye. Now, everything I described would be second nature to the ghosts. They all wear their famous camouflage coats, which could be pulled up with a hood, and its troops would rarely wear their helmets, instead opting for foraging caps. Whilst the helmet provides obvious ballistic protection, they can impede vision and hearing, can knock on things, and obviously look very unnatural given their shape. The Tanith do however wear the standard issue Astra Militarum flak armour and also equipped with standard issue las guns, but sporting rifle butts made of Tanith wood, which rapidly become a rarity given the destruction of their homeworld planet. Whilst being light infantry, they still had heavy and special weapons scattered throughout the regiment. The most famous heavy weapons specialist, Trooper Trigon Bragg, single-handedly mans an autocannon, however with terrible aim. To be fair though, firing any heavy weapon from the hip is going to result in poor marksmanship, even if Bragg is the biggest bloke in the regiment. Now the signature piece of Tanith war gear is straight silver, which is a 30cm combat blade which can also be affixed as a bayonet. This warblade would be used to quietly kill sentries via a throat slit or puncturing the heart from beneath the ribcage. So key characters of the Ghost are largely captured in the current 5-man model set, with Trooper Bragg already mentioned. Trooper Bryn Milo, also as mentioned before, isn't included, but being the regiment's youngest member, Gaunt's aide and the regiment's pipes player, he's mentioned a lot in the novels. Dr. Tolan Dorden isn't included in the current kit either, but interestingly in an old metal miniature kit both him and Milo have dedicated miniatures. Dorden was drafted into the regiment alongside his son, and he actually has quite a disdain for weapons, even refusing to carry one when on patrol. An older gentleman, he truly cares for the troops of the regiment, and also developed quite a respect for Gaunt. Although being a commissar, Gaunt led the regiment for camaraderie and a fair approach of discipline. On numerous occasions, he would similarly let off troops for breaches of discipline that would have been punishable by death by other commissars. The relationship between Gaunt and Doc Dorden would be strained when he executed bolt pistol discipline on other regiment's troops whom he caught stealing medical supplies. This reminder of the commissariat's responsibilities would shock Dorden. Also, the fact Gaunt leads the regiment is unique. Normally commissars sit outside of the chain of command, and Ibram Gaunt was given this split role when he was commanded to raise the Tanith regiment. His leadership, however, isn't all smooth sailing, with numerous members of the regiment resenting him for saving them from Tanith, as mentioned earlier. Perhaps the member with the most anger is Major Rawn, whom leads 3 Platoon. A sourer character, he would however slowly grow to accept Gaunt's leadership, and the two would develop an understanding. Colonel Commissar, whom leads 2 Platoon, is the most senior Tanith native of the regiment. His birth was a difficult one for his mother, and Dr. Dorden actually provided medical assistance, hence forming a very strong relationship between the two of them. Goldbeck is a mountain of a man, at 2 meters tall and built like a wrestler. He is a father figure for the troops of the regiment, although he would gradually develop issues with his self-confidence from self-doubt problems. He felt like an imposter, feeling more at home amongst the grunts, given his modest family upbringing with his dad being a machinesmith. Master Sniper Larkin leads the regiment's marksmen, referred to simply as Larks or Mad Larkin. He struggles with mental health problems, probably from too much time behind the scope and seeing heads explode from his lad shots. He was a really close friend with Trooper Bragg, whom would eventually die in combat, and this would see Larks become very withdrawn from his comrades. Sergeant Scout McCall leads the regiment's elite scouts, and is another quiet character, preferring to often work alone. He and his scouts form the reconnaissance elements of the regiment, conducting surveillance missions ahead of the main force. McCall is also responsible for training and selecting the next scouts, a position a lot of troopers aspire for. Something which put a lot of strain on the regiment morale was also the recruitment of new troops as casualties mounted. Normally, a regiment could recruit in new members from their homeworld, but obviously this isn't possible for Tanith. A solution to this was found when the Ghost fought in the siege of Vervenhivers on the planet of Vergast. A savage war where millions of normal civilians had been corrupted into fighting for chaos. Amongst Vervenhivers' defence was numerous scratch companies formed from the Hivers, including gangers, workers and everyday folk. These scratch companies performed beyond expectation, and after the victory of the Imperium were invited to join the regiment. Given the savagery of the war, A lot of the hivers had lost everything, with their families, homes, employment all destroyed, so the prospect of joining the regiment was actually quite inviting. These recruits were met with a mixed reception, with a lot of the Tanith natives having the idea that outsiders were joining the regiment and diluting the heritage of the first and only. Of these newcomers, many were women, where the regiment had previously to that point been exclusively male. Prominent members, including Mad Larks, were highly sceptical of these women, despite most of them being highly capable, displaying great violence in the defence of their former homeworld. The integration took time, with some of the shadier Vervenhivers with murkier backgrounds displaying some early bad behaviour, but eventually the two would mesh. This included some of the female Vervenhivers rising to the platoon sergeant rank, and some joining the coveted Scout Sergeant McColl's scouting unit. Commissar Gaunt reflected that once the Tanith and Vervenhivers were using each other's swear words, the integration was complete, with the Tanith curse word being freffen, i.e. freffen mess, and the Vervenhiver word being gacken, i.e. gacken idiot. From my experience, the integration of differing units was a real matter. Even within a company, individual platoons could hold disdain for each other, and I witnessed several disagreements between blokes, with some resulting in dust-ups. The army and the Astra Militarum are rough places. However, it is within this adversity that often the strongest bonds are formed, and outsiders are usually met with hesitance. New blokes would need to prove themselves, with any who weren't up to scratch receiving bullying and being excluded from social settings. But for the Tanith and the Vervenhivers, they're actually the same. Both are ghosts, with Vervenhive being a liberated pile of destroyed homes and families, and the planet of Tanith no longer existing. So both are first and only. So there you have it, the Tanith first and only Gaunt's Ghosts. Hope you enjoyed it, learning about their story. This is of course a super top line summary. There are 16 novels in the series, and I've listened to several of them, and I can't recommend them enough. Great to listen to when you're painting your miniatures. So if you enjoyed this and want to show me some love, you can do so as always with a like, comment or subscribing, a YouTube super thanks or joining my Patreon platoon. However, even just watching the entire video really helps, as it means YouTube will suggest this video to other people who might find it interesting. Thanks for watching. Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten, Lieutenant Mitchell, Colour Sergeant DuPont, Sergeants Brady, Adal, Gilliam, Merrill, Veterans Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Witten, Guardsman Combs, Glenn, Hills, Litton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin.